What's up? Welcome to my channel. Today, I show you 10 soccer games for awesome Sega Genesis. I chose the 10 games I like the most. In the end, this top 10. Tell me your favorite in the comments. Right? Let's start. Ultimate Soccer is a 1993 soccer video game by Rage Software released for the Sega Genesis. By request of Sega, which even allowed their mascot, Sonic, to be featured in the game menus. While similar in name, it has no relations with the Ultimate Soccer Manager series, but was followed by Striker Still for the Genesis, Striker 96, released for DOS, Sega Saturn and the PlayStation, and Striker Pro 2000, released for PlayStation and the Dreamcast. While never published to the Super Nintendo, Rage developed other games for the Nintendo console, including Elite Soccer, Manchester United Championship Soccer and World Soccer 94, Road to Glory. Focused on national teams, with a total of 64, all with fake names and individual team values, it had one of the highest option counts for 16-bit football games. Up to 18 different settings can be changed, including ball weight, weather, surface, tightness of ball control, pass-back rule, and perhaps the most remembered of all, the ability to play 6-on-6 indoor football. Several game modes are available, including Penalty Shootout, Ultimate League, Ultimate Cup, Group Phase, and Knockout Stage and Knockout. However, the game lacks both passwords and battery save, and all competitions must be completed in one sitting. Up to 8 players can play if 2 4-player adapters are used. Ultimate Soccer is played in a field of vision similar to the Madden NFL games in the console, a second row view behind the player's shoulders that can also be tilted to show more field depth or more detail closer to the bottom of the screen. Player sprites, while small, are well animated and with small details such as dirt or water splashing from the player's feet, which would become one of the trademark effects in Sega's own Worldwide Soccer. Gameplay depends on how versions are tweaked. Lighter balls travel farther and higher and can be given zigzag after touches, perfect from long-range shots, but on the other hand, are more prone to be deflected by strong winds. Heavy balls barely lift from the floor, which makes them more suitable for short passing, but are affected by wet grass. It's possible to score from any situation, including direct corners and free kicks, head deflections from long passes, bicycle kicks, working around the goalkeeper or pressing the defense and try to tackle the ball in. Pro Move Soccer. The game itself features international-level soccer matchups and customizable options that makes a game anywhere from the length of a childhood soccer match, 3-minute halves, to the length of an actual FIFA soccer match, 45-minute halves. As long as they can remember the lengthy passwords, players can also make their own soccer teams. The game's announcer uses brief words and phrases to describe the action. Players can either play Exhibition, World Cup, Practice, or 8 Nations Tournament, where 8 nations compete to win the championship, making for shorter gameplay. This game has a medium difficulty level and can be mastered with repeated gameplay. Teams can choose to concede from either of the tournaments at any time without dire consequences. Fictional players play for each team. Nations range from Argentina to Jamaica and Russia. Different weather conditions can be activated on the option screen, including sunny days in addition to cloudy days, rainy days, and snowy days. Fouls can be deactivated, allowing less experienced players to tackle the opposition without the fear of either a yellow card or a red card. Injuries can appear in the game as a result of rough play. Being tackled an excessive number of times can also cause a player to get injured. Failure to substitute an injured player results in him losing his abilities for the remainder of the game. Pro Move Soccer is fun and has something good for anyone who plays this game. Champions World Class Soccer is a soccer video game developed by Park Place Productions and published by Acclaim. The UK release features a photo of Welsh international Ryan Giggs on the game's box. The game has 2 modes, 1 player or 2 players, and a friendly game and tournament mode. Progress through the tournament can be saved via a password given at the end of each match. There are also options to turn free kicks and corners on or off, as well as selecting the amount of time allowed for the game. You control a team in an overhead view and take on a bunch of other teams that competed in the 1990 FIFA World Cup. This is the start of one issue with the game, a distinct lack of balance. West Germany were the winners that year, defeating Argentina. Germany was reunited before this game came out, but Germany and Argentina are astronomically better than any other teams. This is especially noticeable with Germany. Every single statistic they have: offense, defense, etc., is completely maxed out. Why would you want to choose any other team? There is a slight learning curve with the game, but once you get the hang of it, things get pretty easy. You switch players with C, and once you have the ball, you can pass it, take a medium shot, or take a long shot. Having the long shot and switch players on the same button can be problematic, especially if you are unsure who has the ball. On defense, you can push or slide into other players. Having opponents slide into you is really annoying because your man tends to just lie on the ground for a good 2 to 3 seconds before getting up. Controlling the ball is pretty easy, and I really like the way they handle the physics of dribbling. Sadly, this game can be exploited pretty easily once you realize that all you have to do is take a power shot toward the corner of the goal and slide into enemies at the right angle. The collision detection is very finicky and inconsistent, especially when you are pursuing an enemy player. There are a couple other problems with the gameplay, namely how it can be confusing when passing to another player and the fact that controlling your goalie in a penalty shootout is near impossible. There is also no difficulty setting, severely restricting the variety of gameplay. The only variety with playing comes with choosing your starting formation and time limit, in addition to allowing penalties. Overall, despite all the problems, the game is pretty fun. A difficulty setting would have gone a long way, as well as some balance with the different teams. Champions World Class Soccer is one of the better soccer games I have played. Genesis sports games are usually done really well, and this game is no exception to that. If you enjoy the classics like the NHL games or World Series baseball, then go ahead and add this to your Genesis sports collection for a couple hours of fun. Otherwise, there really is not a whole lot here that makes it stand out to the above average Genesis games. Pro Striker 2 is the sequel to the first title, and is a very similar soccer game to the previous year's model. The updates are largely cosmetic, with the game retaining the same top-down view and field mini-map. Of course, the full 1994 J-League team and player roster is included. The exhibition, playoff, and league modes are back from the first game, as well as the All-Star mode that was added in its update. Once again, up to 4 players can play simultaneously, and the menu system has also been greatly streamlined. Immerse yourself in the world of excellent Japanese football as you select your team of J heroes and take them on an epic mission deep into the J League to take on the best the world has and lay waste to them all. In the badass J League Pro Striker 2, you must showcase your talents to outplay and destroy the increasingly talented opposition to score more goals than them all and win the tournament. Sensible Soccer. The Genesis version was released in 1992, and there were ports for the SNES and the Amiga 500. In 1993, a special edition was released on the Genesis, which featured the World Cup teams of 1994. One will find great names among the team members. For instance, the team of Argentina has Diego Maradona, the Dutch team has Mark Overmars and Dennis Bergkamp. Many of the players only retired recently. Some are still playing, others have become coaches. The 2006 Soccer World Championship also seems to have triggered the revival of sensible soccer. Just in time, a few weeks before the beginning of the World Championship, there will be a release of a 3D version for Xbox, PlayStation 2 and PC. The new version will try to capture the flair of the original, fast-paced action, simple gameplay, and soccer players with big heads, so that they can be spotted easily by the gamer. Nowadays, publishers of sports games have to be very careful if they intend to include detailed models of famous players, names, or logos in their games. The good old Sensible Soccer series kept it simple and didn't suffer from such a problem. The players look all the same. For instance, if you select Argentina as your team and Maradona scores a goal, then it is only the textual indication that tells you that it was Maradona who made the goal. The players look the same but have different properties. For instance, a forward from a strong team like Argentina runs faster than a defender of a rather weak team like, let's say, Switzerland. The World Championship mode is not the only way to play. There are the following modes: UEFA Cup, Euro Super League, Booby League, and Turkey Tournament. Once a tournament has started, there is an option to save the tables after each game. Of course, you don't have to play a tournament at all and can instead just play a friendly exhibition game. The default game length is 3 minutes, 90 seconds for each half, which is about right and leads to reasonable results, i.e., 3:1. The gameplay is easy and intuitive. There are 3 kinds of shots. The A button triggers a strong kick. The B button is for passing the ball on to another player. The C button is also for passing, but for a short distance. The player who is currently controlling is marked up with his number. As soon as one of your players gets control over the ball, one gets control over the player. From a strategic point of view, there is not much to do, but before the beginning of the match, one can select a specific starting formation. The multiplayer is great too, and it is fun to participate in a tournament with a few friends. Basically, there is almost no limit in the number of human players. It is just that the ratio playing/waiting time deteriorates exponentially as the number of human participants grows. The music in Sensible Soccer is not that great, but after listening to it for hours it simply becomes annoying and one develops the urge to turn it off. In the options menu there is a button for just that. Once the music is switched off, you are left with the noise of a soccer stadium. The sound is not great, but does the job. There's not too much anyway, just the bare minimum. A cheering crowd when the teams enter the stadium, the sound of a ball being kicked, the famous soccer stadium, all which is an awe performed by thousands of fans when the goalkeeper has to dive for a ball. There is also the whistle of the referee, which will sound to start and end a game, as well as many times during a game when there is a foul or when the ball is kicked off the field. The referee has a good eye, and fouls will lead to either a free kick, a yellow card, a red card, or a penalty depending on the circumstances of the foul. The rather complicated concept of an offside play can't be found in International Sensible Soccer, which is good because it keeps the ball in motion. World Cup USA 94 is a top-down soccer game recreating the namesake tournament. Beside the 24 teams who qualified for the actual World Cup, other significant footballing nations like England, France, and Denmark can be drafted in. Tackling is difficult and passing is easy, making for a flowing end-to-end style of play. The presentation of the menus is largely icon-based, with the official mascot featured prominently. European Club Soccer was better than anything that came before it. For a start, you didn't have to play as United. This was crucial to me because, being from Merseyside, I'd been rightly trained to dislike them. In fact, the sheer number of teams you could play as blew me away. There were squads from all over Europe, loads of which I'd never heard of before. Even better, the team select screen had a globe with which you'd select the country you wanted to pick from, which then led to a rotating menu of club badges. Now, these badges weren't the real ones. Fully licensed football games weren't a thing yet, but they were close enough to impress me, at least. I was used to Super Kick-Off's workmanlike menus and a limited selection of made-up teams. On Super Kick-Off, you had to change the language option just to play as teams from another country. European Club Soccer was like a sweet shop in comparison. There were 167 teams to pick from, all with real team names and familiar emblems. As someone who loves choice, European Club Soccer was a 16-bit footballing dream. This feeling extended to the graphics and sound, too. The blobs were gone, replaced by big sprites that had faces, shirt numbers, and most things real footballers had, like visible legs and arms. Sure, everyone looked the same, but at least these clones looked good. The kit design screen featured big sprites and both home and away kits, something we take for granted in the era of third kits. International Superstar Soccer is a soccer video game and sequel to International Superstar Soccer developed and published by Konami. The deluxe version was initially published for the Super Nintendo, then for the Mega Drive, developed by Factor 5, and finally for the PlayStation. The player can choose from 16 formations and 8 strategies and can compete with 36 selections with recognizable players such as Valderrama, Baggio, Ravanelli, Lechkov, but their names are fictional like Capitali for Batistuta. There are several competitions available including International Cup, World Series, Scenario Mode, and customizable mini-cups and leagues. On the initial screen of the game menu, these are the modes that appear to choose from. Open game, friendly game against another player or against the CPU, with options to choose the stadium, weather conditions, physical condition of the players, number of players, and skills of the goalkeepers. It is also possible to watch matches played between the CPU. In the same menu, there is the possibility of playing the Short League mode with up to 6 teams, and Tournament League with up to 08 teams. The two modes are with elimination games until the final of the tournament. International Cup, World Cup mode, starting with a dispute of local qualifiers, varying the selections according to the region. In the International Cup, there are 32 teams with the same style of play as in the FIFA World Cups. World League mode, where the player plays against all selections in the game in 2 rounds. At the end, if he is in the first position, the special game opens, where the player faces the All-Stars team that brings together the best players from the selections, and, in case of victory, he will be able to use not only the All-Stars, but also the other 5 All-Stars present, Europe A and B, America, Africa, and Asia. There are also option modes, and of course password. Using the passwords, the player can continue his game where he ended, continuing his career in the game. FIFA Soccer 95 is a huge improvement over the original. Most importantly, the whole game is more polished. The graphics and sound are sharper, the action is faster and smoother, the AI is improved, and the control is more tight. Also pretty cool is the addition of more moves. I especially enjoy the possibility to punch other players in the face, which will almost always get you booked. The battery backup is improved as well, making it possible to save up 4 competitions in the cartridge, replacing the laborious password system. It is easy to see why FIFA Soccer 95 was a success in its day. There weren't any other soccer games that could compete with the excellent and smooth presentation EA managed to give the game. There are tons of options, among them League, Tournament, and Friendly. The menu system works fine, and the saving feature is one of the best to be found on any Genesis game around. FIFA Soccer 95 includes all the official teams from England, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, United States, Spain, and Brazil, and it's also possible to play with the national teams. However, the game wasn't completely officially licensed, and because of that all of the players' names are fictitious. The gameplay isn't as directly accessible as of its main competitors, Sensible Soccer or International Superstar Soccer, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just takes a little longer to get into, because the controls seem a little bit stiffer. Due to the isometric view on the pitch, it also can be a little hard to pass accurately to non-visible, nearby teammates. Scoring goals seems especially hard at first. The goalkeepers are extremely good. However, people tend to forget this is the case in almost every soccer game around to this day. If you have the patience to practice for a little while, FIFA 95 turns out to be very deep and involving. You can alter your strategy and line up in any possible way, and it really affects the way your players are playing in a manner which was quite revolutionary for 1994 and 1995. In terms of options and presentation, FIFA 95 easily beats its main competitors, but Sensible Soccer is more suitable for non-soccer fans due to its more accessible gameplay. Overall, FIFA 95 is a big improvement over the original game and an excellent soccer simulation with a top-of-the-bill presentation and outstanding memory function. I also consider it as one of the highlights of the 16-bit FIFA series, because it only went downhill after this one, especially the graphics and presentation of the following editions are disappointing. Whenever the gameplay has improved in those games is a matter of controversy. Personally, I don't think so. It wasn't until the quite recent FIFA 08 Xbox 360/PS3 that EA finally managed to give the series some its initial unique and professional charm back. FIFA 96 is the third incarnation of the now famous series, and it was the first FIFA game that wasn't in any way exclusive for the Sega Genesis. The original game was first released on the Genesis, and the 95 edition was an exclusive release for Sega's 16-bit platform, but FIFA 96 got a multi-platform release. Besides the Genesis, the game also hit the Super Nintendo, PC, Game Gear, Game Boy, and the next-generation consoles of that time, the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation. Even the Sega 32X got a very scarce and crappy port of the game. Somehow, I don't have very fond memories of FIFA 96. I was very disappointed with it when I was a kid, and all I could remember was that the game looked very dark and was very hard. Now, 15 years later, it's time to revisit the game again and see if my initial feelings are still justified. First, let's start off with the graphics. The isometric view on the pitch stayed the same. On the back side of the box, EA claims that players are modeled with silicon graphics utilizing motion design animation technology. I don't know what that means. but in comparison with its two predecessors, the animation has improved just a little. However, it isn't such a big improvement as the Silicon Graphics motion design animation technology might suggest. While the animation is a little better, I still feel that the overall graphics are worse than in FIFA 94 and 95. It's hard to put my finger on the cause of this, but it probably has to do with the colors. FIFA 96 seems much darker, I'd almost say gray, in comparison to the earlier games, which makes this edition look dull and obsolete. The sound hasn't changed much, it's still solid, with decent passing sounds and cheering public. Secondly, what's my opinion about the gameplay now? Well, I still have the same opinion about it as 15 years ago, just as with the graphics, the game is very, very tough. Scoring a goal is almost impossible due to the overwhelmingly skilled goalkeepers. The controls are solid, but the addition of some new moves, 1-2 passing, fast dribble, volleys, dummies, fakes and nutmegs, make things a little harder. Not all those moves are all very useful and some of them are difficult to perform. To me it seems the game is a little too keen on performing the 1-2 passing, even when you think you don't use that move, which makes keeping control of the ball even harder. Also, the speed of the gameplay, especially that of the ball, has improved, making things tougher. So, even more than the first two games, FIFA 96 requires a lot of practice. What I can appreciate about FIFA 96 now more than in the past is the excessive amount of options. The instruction manual is almost as thick as that of a RPG to describe all options. Well, maybe that's also because my European manual is in 5 different languages as well. FIFA 96 is the first edition of FIFA with an official license, which means all official players from 12 international leagues from the concerning season are available. You can choose to play a friendly game, a custom game, leagues, tournaments, playoffs, or even practice scenarios. For managing fans, it's possible to transfer, or create new, players in league play. The memory backup functions are even more elaborate than in FIFA 95. All leagues can be saved on cartridge, and after winning a league, tournament, or playoff you get a password with which you can restore erased memory from your custom game. However, I find the memory backup also a little bit confusing sometimes. The game seems eager to save anything. When you just want to start a quick game without paying too much attention to the option screens, you almost always end up in a random match between two teams you didn't selected, presumably from a last save. This is. Now tell me what your favorite. You see my top 10 soccer games for NES? Check out. Thanks for watching.